What's up guys, James here from BootWizard Boot Review with video number 2 from Nemeziz week. And today we are still matching our shirts to our boots. So today it is time to get right into it, to get into all of the little tech spec minutiae that you need to know about the Nemeziz 19 Plus. So we're going to start with the looks of the boot. I think that this is a really good looking boot, although I do know that there are a lot of people already who do disagree with me. I think the tape upper, especially in this bright red orange launch colorway with the silver split sole outer, looks really nice. If you do want to get a close-up at just the looks of the boot, there is a full unboxing video on the channel right now, which I will link up in the corner. Alright, so let's get into the upper. So obviously this still retains the same tape-based system that we had on the 18 Plus and on the 17 Plus. But the tape itself is actually different, and it also has a different name, and it's been put together in a different way. So the tape itself is now called tension tape. This tension tape is woven, which means you get a 4-way stretch out of it. So in the previous generations, we only had 2-way stretch. This is 4-way stretch, so it's supposed to give a completely adaptive fit. So it goes left, right, forwards, backwards. It molds much better to the shape and movement of your foot. With regards to adapting to your foot as you're playing and moving, it does a decent job, but it's not something that I'm really saying, oh wow, this tension tape is doing incredible things. A lot of that still comes down to the lockdown, and the lockdown in this, which we will get into later on, isn't as good as it could be. The tension tape does have different tensions throughout the layers of tape. So there are 4 different bands of tape, and each one is a different length and also a different tension, which is a really nice idea. So this one at the top, so you can get your foot in, is super stretchy. The next one down, less stretchy. The next one down from that, less stretchy again, and is where the silicone coating that covers the bottom probably 2/3 of the boot actually starts, and then the very lower part is the stiffest and least stretchy part of the tension tape and completely covered by a silicone coating. So we have all this tape. How's it going to affect the touch on the ball? So if we're comparing this to the previous models, the 17 Plus and the 18 Plus, this is way thinner, like so much thinner, and it's much nicer for it. The 17 Plus and 18 Plus could be a bit padded, a little bulky, because of the way that the inside was constructed to provide you with the lockdown. This has had all of that taken away, and it is just tape with an internal liner. So the touch on the ball is much more barefoot, it's quite sharp and much more responsive, and compared to the other 2 models, it is much better. This silicone coating is super stiff, and it really does affect how pliable the boot is out of the box. This needs time. You have to spend some time out on the field to break this in and break it down so that it does mold and fit your foot better, and you get a better feel and responsiveness on the ball. I've always kind of been behind the idea of a tape boot. It just seems to make sense. Boxers use it for support, ballet dancers use it for support. These are some of the people who go through some of the hardest physical batterings and beatings that you can think of, and they use tape for support. So why could we not do it on football boots? The problem being that, especially when we use it in this kind of design, we have 4 layers of overlapping tape. So while I get a great feeling of responsiveness and of touch and sharpness on the ball from the toe box area and the instep, in the laces area, where there are no laces, you have 4 layers of overlapping tape. Each one of these layers overlaps with each other, which, while it adds to the effect of looking cool, it certainly does add bulk on the surface of the boot and over the top of your foot. And my final criticism of the upper in the tape system is the fact that all of these layers of tape have to be stitched together. So each layer is stitched on top of another, which adds more bulk, and also in this instance does mean that when the boots are on feet, you are aware of this. Again, not to a point where it's detrimental to performance of the boot, but you are aware that the tape is stitched together, and the seam, particularly this seam right here, you are aware of in the boot. I can put my fingers in the boot and I can feel it, and it's the same when you first get them on your feet, although when you're playing it's not something that you notice at all. So overall, it's a sharp, clean, barefoot touch on the ball and is a vast improvement on the 18 plus and the 17 plus in my opinion. But should we really be making boots out of tape if they give us this many problems? And is it really just a bit of a gimmick? Alright, let's go a nice easy one. Value for money. These cost 280 euros. That's madness. Is it value for money? No, it's awful, awful, awful value for money. 280 euros for a pair of football boots is completely insane in my opinion. You can pick up the 19.1 which has the lacing system and a low cut. That is 220 euros, and I will have a full unboxing, tech spec review and playtest review of those up on the channel this week. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Now in this instance, I obviously cannot make my usual recommendation of buy an old colorway, buy it on sale, save yourself the money, because this is a brand new boot and this is the only colorway that is available right now. So my advice would be, if you really, really want these boots, you're gonna have to pony up 280 euro for them, which I don't think is particularly good value for money. 280 euros is madness, says the man holding them in his hands. Alright, let's flip the boot over and take a look at the sole plate and the stud pattern. So a lot of people have been talking about this because Adidas have switched to a split sole design. So for anyone that doesn't know how a split sole design works, these two bits, the silver chrome bits, are actually just glued onto the outside. They are simply there to house the stud pattern. The actual sole plate itself, the sole board, is on the inside of the boot. So it's underneath this orange tape, okay? So that runs the length of the boot, and that's what gives you your stiffness. The stiffness in this is really good. They have stiffened this up massively. It is flexible in the toe but with a really nice amount of spring back, and the actual center of the boot and the heel is very stiff. This has made the boot far more aggressive when pushing off and when changing directions, and I really like that they've done this with this brand new torsion system. So as I say, the stud pattern is housed on these two split outsoles, and the stud pattern follows the same actual pattern as the previous generation and as almost every single Adidas boot does. Get a new idea, Adidas. So you can see that it is still the 6 studs around the outside, 1 support stud in the middle, and then the 4 studs in the heel of the boot. However, you will notice that the studs themselves are a very different shape. So we've gone from those larger half moon studs to elliptical and conical studs. The idea here being that these are going to pierce the ground very easily and very quickly, and then they're going to allow you to rotate and turn very quickly. A lot of this boot is about agility. They finally seem to have taken the idea of an agility boot and really gone with it. So instead of calling something an agility boot and everyone going, why? This really does seem to have tried to do that by giving you an adaptive fit and a stud pattern and sole plate that is designed for quick motion, fast turn off and aggressive movements. And it does work. I much prefer this to the old model. But overall, I think this is better than what we had before. But I certainly wouldn't call it revolutionary, and I'm certainly not super hyped or super excited about it, but an improvement is an improvement. Finally, while we're talking sole plates and stud patterns, we do have to mention that this is an FG stud pattern. Adidas have pretty much done away with marking their boxes as FG/AG, and this is just marked as FG, and for very good reason. This overall is not going to be a good boot for using on AG surfaces. The studs are longer, it's not made for it durability wise. I wouldn't recommend it. Remember, this is an FG boot. Okay, let's take a look at the weight. So let's bear in mind that the Adidas 18 Plus weighed around 215 to 220 grams depending on your size. This is my pair of 19 Plus, which are in a UK size 8 EU 42, and they weigh in at 235 grams. We are talking a 15 to 20 gram weight increase on these boots from the previous generation. That is disappointing. Now, while these aren't excessively heavy, to add that much weight between two generations is certainly something that you wouldn't expect, especially when they're trying to make this boot more agile and more nimble, so a lighter weight boot would be more beneficial. Overall, I'm pretty disappointed with what the weight has come out on these. I think it could have and should have been a lot better.
Please hang up and try again.
And finally, let's have a look at the fit and feel of these boots on feet. So to start with, on the inside of the boot, you can't see much because of this teeny tiny opening, but it is basically just a very thin mesh liner that runs all the way through the boot to provide you with that barefoot feel with just the tape on top of it. The back heel area here has silicone dots in it, which are there to hold your heel in place and provide extra grip. Very reminiscent of what you'll get from the X18 range. So that's a nice addition. Then you also get this as your insole, which is the Unlock Agility branded Nemeziz insole, which is very thin. It is a very thin piece of foam on the back and the synthetic suede on the top. Alright, so getting these on feet, the first thing that you should notice is that they look incredible. I love these. When you do get them on feet, you should be able to see that you get a really nice fit around your ankle here. So as a mid-cut boot, this is probably my favorite mid-cut design that I have ever come across. It wraps my foot really well. There's no excess material, there's no bagging. It's super, super nice. This is a huge plus for this boot in its mid-cut design. And also, don't worry, these are simple to get on. These are no more difficult to get on than any other laceless boot. In fact, I would probably say they're easier than some laceless boots. So don't worry about that tiny, tiny opening that is at the top of the boot. In terms of fit, I have gone for my regular size UK 8 EU 42. Now, something to consider is that inside the boot there is that torsion band, tension tape, whatever you want to call it, that provides you with the lockdown. It does squeeze your foot. For me, my feet are like a 7 3/4. So that extra kind of quarter of a size I get means that these are quite comfortable for me in the regular size 8. If you have very wide feet, or if you have wide feet in general and you want to get these as a comfortable boot, you might want to try the half size up, but it's still not my general recommendation. My general recommendation is to stick true to size in these boots. The lockdown overall is decent, and I still think that if you are going to buy a laceless football boot, the Nemeziz is the way to go. I believe that the 18 Plus had the best lockdown, and I still think that the 19 Plus offers better lockdown than any other laceless model you can buy right now. I will say though that I think the lockdown has gotten worse in this boot. So the 18 Plus had a better lockdown, but there's been a bit of a trade-off. While the 18 Plus had better lockdown, it also was much more uncomfortable on my feet. I felt a little bit more squeezed, which even though this has that tension bar, I think that it feels a lot nicer on foot. I don't feel particularly squeezed, and it also offers me a reasonable amount of lockdown for a laceless boot. Overall, this is a much thinner, more barefoot feeling boot than we've ever had before on the Nemeziz. In general, I think it is a good boot on feet, even if it does have a couple of issues. In conclusion, do I like this boot? Is it a good choice? I think that it is a good boot with many things that have improved from the previous generation of both the 17 and 18 plus. It's a bit of a trade-off. If you liked the previous generation and you were willing to put up with the flaws that that had, you are probably more than willing to put up with the flaws that this has, because none of them are really too overriding. And the new positives, I would say, certainly do outweigh the negatives that have been taken from it. So overall, yes, it's a good boot. Yes, I like it. But do be aware of those issues and definitely try these on first to make sure that that torsion bar that runs across the inside of the boot is something that fits your foot and something you can deal with. So that is all for today from BootWizard, from a boot that I think I was expecting more from, but I'm still fairly happy with what's been delivered. If you did enjoy the video, please do smash the like button. It really helps me out. Do comment down below. What do you think of the Nemeziz, especially if you've got your hands on a pair? I do want to know what you think of the 19 plus. And do remember to subscribe. I've said it before, this is a huge week for the channel. I have Nemeziz videos going on all week. If you've been paying attention all video, there's some nice little messy 19.1s right there. But that is all from BootWizard today. Have a good one, and we'll see you soon.